committee members and members of the public. This is welcome to a joint hearing of Human Services and Health and Human Services Committee. Senator Wiklund and I have convened this meeting to present our draft of the Program Integrity Omnibus bills. The bill before you today, as Senator Wiklund and I have written together, reflects a combination of proposals from individual member bills as well as the governor's proposals related to program integrity. As a result, it was a deliberative work, and the individual components of the bill have been heard in committees. In a moment, we're going to ask nonpartisan staff to talk us through the bill index that identifies the source of each of these components. That said, we know the process to get this package drafted and heard in time for the end of session has had a tighter turnaround time than what we would have liked. We know there's more work to be done. Let me rephrase that. We know there's more work to be done. The bill has stops in judiciary and finance before it heads to the floor. So there's multiple places where things need to be fixed. We can do that. You have our commitment to keep working on refining this proposal. If there's a proposal that you're concerned about, let's fix it. I urge all of us to work together on finding better solutions rather than refusing to entertain change. Minnesotans have made it clear they expect real results to address program integrity this session. It's a top priority for all 4 legislative caucuses. These are hard conversations, and you know what? We would not be doing our jobs if we did not have them. And you'll see in the bill, there's the prepayment review. No one in this committee, the committee needs to be reminded about how poorly prepayment review was rolled out at the end of last year. Providers were caught off guard and expected payments were delayed. It's important to understand that the department already has the authority to impose prepayment review. By codifying it here, we're inserting more legislative control in the process, including requiring the department to give providers a 60-day notice before imposing prepayment review. This will help ensure that providers aren't caught off guard again. Remote supports, that is in there. There will probably, years ago, we had worked to get remote supports in. I do not want to see that go away, but that is in there just because it was discussed and it's a placeholder. We have to balance both the number of letters that we got from folks about remote supports, preserving access and choice. So I look forward to that conversation. ICS reforms. People are anxious about ICS reform, and I hear it. At the same time, you can't go 1 week without seeing stories about ICS in the headlines. Preserving the status quo does nothing to help the program and the people, the why, the people that are served by it. Providers themselves have now been advocating for a sunset of ICS. I do not want ICS to end. I want it to work. But the threats of its future cannot be ignored. I'd ask the committee to remember the governor's actions to terminate the HHS program, Housing Stabilization. We in this committee, and our Human Services Conference Committee, had a fix for that. And remember, it was eliminated, strike of a pen. So if we don't do something about ICS because the program integrity concerns increase, the governor could end the program like they did with HHS with a stroke of a pen. That integrity concerns and ICS are real and persistent. We cannot kick down the road anymore and promise to address them in a future session. There's going to be no sunset, no working group, and no reforms if a governor terminates this program. Therefore, I think we should be thinking clearly about how to codify that. The reforms need to belong in this bill and need to be carried into a conference committee for discussion. There's one thing all of us can agree on is that legislation and language in front of us, the language is not ready to be signed into law. There's a lot of work to be done to make it better. Senator Wiklund and I are ready to work with all of you to make it better. And we will have hard but necessary debates today. Senator Wiklund.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I will be brief because Chair Hoffman, you've really covered comprehensively the thoughts that I share with you about this process and about key elements of this bill that is before us. We would love to have had, more time, but we are at the date we are at, and we need to work hard to bring something forward for examination and discussion today, knowing that there will be a chance to provide feedback to us and modify the proposal that's before us. So this bill has been brought forward through the result of work all this session. We have heard provisions in both committees, or heard the provisions in both the committees and had discussion in both committees about program integrity and the vital elements that we want to see in that are passed this session. And now we have a compiled bill that takes into account the input from many stakeholders. We do know that there are reasons to look at certain provisions and examine and have these hard conversations so that we are addressing the key concerns people have raised to us. So I look forward to the discussion today and look forward to hearing from people after this hearing to help us understand your perspectives and how we can come up with the best solution we can to move forward this session. So thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Unbelievable. She said comprehensive. That's me, comprehensive. Can you imagine that? Senator Abler.
Well, thanks, Mr. Chair. I'm going to use the word collaborative. And so the failure on the HSS housing stabilization matter was started in the beginning. It was poorly designed. We sat in the conference committee and actually fixed it last May or whenever it was. Enough plans in place. The department, they should have tried to rescue it. There were really good providers. There are people without services in that niche. There are providers who were honest and integrity, who hired more people to do the right thing, not just people driving Range Rovers around as 20-year-olds. Just as an example on the ICS, and Senator Wiklund, just to offer you my input as well on some of these things, we can write all kinds of stuff down. Let's say I want to fix ICS. How about if we ask the good ICS providers how they do it and what standards we should put in place? And to do all that, who knows what the impact here is. And so that's my advice on every element that you want to reform, ask the good people. And I just want to confront Mr. O'Malley with what his view was, that 10% are honest, 10% are grossly dishonest, and 80% would take the extra money if you let them. That is not true. That is not true. There are companies like LifeWorks, LSS, and hundreds of other companies that go out of their way to have good compliance programs already. And we do not want to make it worse. The whole system is in a tizzy. And you know, I mean, we'll work through this. This is a 200-page document that I didn't even know we were doing. I saw it on Saturday. I thought we were working off the A18. I thought that's what we were doing, and it was totally surprising to me, and I'm an insider, Mr. Chair. So we'll work through this. I'm glad you mentioned a few of the things that we have to deal with, remote services, et cetera, as we go into the work. And so if we're going to reform, the governor finally noticed we have fraud, and okay, let's have all the politics about who decided what when, and Klobuchar is going to fix it all too, and like, great, and you know, Lisa Dameth, and we're going to have that argument all summer long. But at the end of the day, there's 100 and some thousand people that are dependent on these programs, not even counting all the hospital programs, but on the disability side. If we mess up, more will die. Already 5 people are dead, according to the Ombudsman, by the failed implementation of ideas that maybe made sense, that were done with no input from the people in the audience, from the providers who were honest. And that's my concern and my plea as we go forward. And plus, it has to pass a divided House. And so you can do, the two of you can put together whatever you want and get 34 people to vote for it, and that will be nice. And you've made your statement, but I don't think that's what you're trying to do. I'm not questioning your motives. I think you're both sincere in this. And so the more we can find a way to make a bill that passes the Senate with 60 votes or something, then we can maybe get something done. So I appreciate that, and here we go to the process. So thank you, Mr. Chair and Madam Chair.
No, it's good memory. It's good to go down that memory to talk about what we had done in a conference committee that was inclusive. And this is too, you'll see in your packets are the provisions that are in there and who and where those came from. So as we do that, and let's have members, Mr. Monahan, Liam, Ali Hoffman, Litchi, Kyle Raymond, and Dennis Vessel. I don't know who's going to go first. They want to take us through the overview of what we're looking at today. That's my notes have this, but if not, it wouldn't be the first time I was wrong. So, it's.
Mr. Chair, members, would you prefer that we start with a spreadsheet or with a walkthrough of the language, or only do one or the other? We're prepared to do either or both.
Members, comments?
Mr. Chair, I think the
Spreadsheet?
policy. Oh, is that right? Okay. Well,
Udke was the first to talk.
well, then he can win. He wants to see the spreadsheet, Matt.
I'm good.
Mr.
Let's
Chair.
go look at the spreadsheet. Thank you, Senator Udke. Go ahead, Mr. Raymond.
Mr. Chair, members, I'm Kyle Raymond, fiscal staff to the Human Services Committee. So today I'll be walking through the spreadsheet that Mr. Vessel and I put together. So the timestamp for the spreadsheet in the bottom right-hand corner is from May 2nd, 7:17 a.m. And I'll begin by pointing out on line 12 the net effect of the bill before you is in fiscal year 26-27. There's a expected reduction in future expenditures of $120.2 million in 26-27, and then an increase in spending of just over $74 million or $74.5 million in the tails. So if you look to lines 28 through 39, that includes by agency and by fund breakdown. You can see that most of the spending is general fund, though the Department of Human Services does have on line 30 some SGSR funding as well. So now I'll move to the proposals, starting with the Department of Human Services. Line 62, this is a governor's proposal relating to transforming the human services system. This proposal is funded at just over 10.7 million in the first biennium and just over 40.1 in the tails. So I'll say this includes the county, state, and role assessment, as well as the state administrative eligibility processing changes and study, as well as some administrative expenses for the agency. I should note that the Human Services Supplemental Budget Bill includes the min choices assessment and study, and also a version of the waiver case management changes that are also included in this. So those last two items are not in this bill, and they are in the supplemental Human Services Budget Bill. Moving next to page 2. The next proposal is on line 102. This is a governor's proposal related to market and receipt-based rate reform and other disability and older adult services changes. So this would limit fees to a maximum of 6% for market and receipt-based services under disability and older adult, certain older adult services. And in addition, this would also include a rate-setting study for market rate services and homemaking services. So overall, the effect of this proposal would be a reduction of just over 500,000 in the 26-27 biennium, and just a reduction of just over 4.5 million in the 28-29 biennium. Moving next to line 111, this is a governor's proposal related to enhancing program integrity and medical assistance. This proposal is funded at the governor's amount of 24.3 million in the 26-27 biennium and just over 46.6 million in the tails. So moving next to page 3, line 135. This is a governor's proposal relating to modernizing program integrity and payment and integrity safeguards. So this proposal includes enhanced prepayment review and claims risk analysis, as well as post-payment audit modernization, and some AI data integration component as well. So this is included at the governor's amount of a reduction of roughly 165.2 million in the 26-27 biennium, and an increase in spending of about 2.3 million in the tails. Moving next to line 157, so this is another governor's proposal relating to implementing uniform service standards, and this has a cost of just over 1.5 million in the 26-27 biennium and just under 1.5 million in the tails. So next, moving to page 4, line 170. So this is a governor's proposal that's been modified and also relates to Senate File 4970 as well as Senate File 3861 related to billing and payment oversight for disability, older adult, and behavioral services. So the proposal, as included in the bill, has a cost of just over 2.5 million in the 26-27 biennium and a reduction in expected expenditures of just roughly 4.7 million in the tails. So this one includes the HCBS provider accountability through support documentation plans. It involves a version of expanded EVV, service delivery oversight, residential services staffing documentation, and the elimination of remote services provisions relating to CRS, and then there's also some remote support being eliminated for 5 waiver services. So moving next to page 6, the next proposal that's included is page 6, line 252. This is a governor's proposal related to nursing facility rates. The effect of this proposal is a reduction of about 6.7 million in the 26-27 biennium and a reduction of about 33.7 in the tails. So this includes limiting health insurance costs and also modifying the nursing facility quality-based payment limit. So moving next to line 263, this is a governor's proposal related to program integrity and ICS. So this includes, this is funded at 2.8 million in the 26-27 biennium and just under 9.7 million in the tails. So move next to line 276. This is related to Senate File 3755, a repeal and redesign of HSS, as well as posting public comments for waiver and state plan amendments prohibiting executive termination of MA benefits. This is included and it has a cost of $199,000 in the first biennium and $466,000 in the tails. Moving next at the bottom of page 6, line 283. This is from Senate File 4551 related to pre-award risk assessment activities and has a cost of 4.3 million in the first biennium and just over 9.8 million in the tails. Moving next to page 7, so now this concludes the Department of Human Services portion of the bill, and now going into the Department of Children, Youth, and Families. The next proposal included is on page 7, line 303, relating to program integrity of the Child Care Assistance Program. And this has a cost of 3.3 million in the first biennium and 5.6 million in the tails. Moving next and finally to line 320. This relates to Human Services redesign, and this relates to the Transforming Human Services proposal mentioned under the Department of Human Services. But this is funded under DCYF at just over 2.2 million in the 26-27 biennium and just under 1.3 million in the tails. And that concludes my remarks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Raymond. Any questions on what we just heard from Mr. Raymond? Not, Senator Gruenhagen.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, Senator Raymond, do you know the amount of, I see FTEs, additional FTEs in here. Do you know the total amount?
Mr. Raymond.
Mr. Chair, Senator Gruenhagen, I don't have the cumulative total, but I could put that together for you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Mr. Monahan, you want to, the index, maybe talk us through the index from an overhead, because members, there are some posted amendments here, And how it's gonna work is each committee is gonna, give an agreement or not agreement, right? To either add something or not add something, and then we will work through that at the next stop then. And so, does that make sense? I guess we can't, go ahead, Senator.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I have a general comment, if it's good to make that now.
Do you want to wait till after the overview, or is this something
Oh,
that
okay.
will segue us into the overview?
Yeah, do the overview first.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Monahan?
Mr. Chair, members, Ms. Hoffman, Litchi, and I put together a index. We organized it slightly differently than we often do it. We did it thematically. And so in the left-handmost column, you'll see where the language is in the bill, so we won't be going in order of the presentation in the draft bill. And we've also tried to point more specifically to where pieces of proposals are. As Mr. Raymond was going through his presentation, he was using the groupings of proposals, often from the governor's bill, all under one line item. So Ms. Hoffman, Litchi, and I tried to break those apart. You'll see the codes used by the department to indicate which proposal language is associated with. We included those in the index so that you could cross-reference the language with the spreadsheet a bit more easily. So I'll start with sort of a thematic grouping of proposals related to billing and service delivery oversight. In Article 1, there are 3 proposals related to this. The first requires the commissioner to conduct prepayment review and provides for 60-day notice, and requires the commissioner to phase in implementation of prepayment review. The next one authorizes the commissioner to conduct post-payment review. And the last one requires managed care plans to conduct prepayment review on all claims and to publish program integrity metrics. The next proposal is found in Article 2. It's a governor's proposal. It requires the commissioner to utilize both prepayment and post-payment review systems, clarifies that paying a claim after prepayment review does not prohibit the commissioner from completing post-payment review, from taking other administrative actions, or from seeking future recovery for an improper payment. The next few proposals under this theme or topic are from Article 5. The first is a governor's proposal that requires the commissioner to grant providers limited access to support plans in the MinChoice system. The next is a proposal of Senator Mohammed's that requires all individuals providing direct care authorized under a disability waiver to enroll in MA as an individual provider. Another proposal from Article 5 is governor's proposal clarifying that HCBS providers may not use MA revenue for room and board expenses. Also in Article 5 is governor's proposal that limits the allowable costs for health insurance provided by nursing facilities to their employees. Another governor's proposal from Article 5 modifies the total care-related payment rate limit used to calculate nursing facility reimbursement rates and to incentivize high-quality care. Also in Article 5 is governor's proposal to eliminate remote overnight supervision in CRS and to eliminate remote support in 5 waiver services. Another governor's proposal to replace the existing ICS daily rate with a 15-minute unit rate. And coupled with that is authorization for the commissioner to execute housing support contracts directly with ICS providers. Another governor's proposal found in Article 5 establishes direct care staffing documentation requirements for various residential services. Another governor's proposal to limit administrative fees for market and receipt-based services and requires the commissioner to conduct a study of market-based rates within the waiver services program. And finally, another proposal in Article 5 related to EIDBI, clarifying the meaning of clinical supervision, clarifying who may provide observation and direction, and specifying service documentation requirements.
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Hoffman-Litchie.
The next thematic grouping are proposals related to children, youth, and families. Both of these proposals can be found within Article 7. The first section is from Senate File 4551, authored by Senator Utke, and it requires certain documentation from any provider, vendor, or individual seeking to enroll, become licensed, receive grant money, or register in any program administered by the Commissioner of Children, Youth, and Families. The second proposal is a governor's proposal, and it requires all providers who receive child care assistance payments to complete compliance training.
Mr. Monahan.
Mr. Chair, members, the next topic is electronic visit verification. This proposal found in various sections in Article 5 is the combination of a number of different proposals. The majority of it is a governor's proposal to rework and expand the EVV system. Also included in this section is some language from Senator Mohammed's 3862 related to which services would be subject to an expanded EVV system, as well as some language related to recipient signatures from a Senator Rasmussen bill.
Ms. Hoffman-Litchie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next topic is Human Services Administrative Reform. All of these proposals can be found within Article 6 of the document. The first section requires the Commissioner of Management and Budget to include the forecasted costs of each covered service provided under medical assistance in the forecast, and also to submit a report to the legislature that includes that information. And that comes from Senate File 4969 from Senator Rasmussen. The following proposals are from the governor's bill. The first clarifies that the Commissioner of Human Services may administer specific duties related to determining medical assistance eligibility on behalf of county agency administrations. The next directs the Commissioner of Human Services to assess transferring the administration of medical assistance eligibility functions from the counties to the Commissioner. The next directs the Commissioner of Human Services to conduct a study to assess and recommend improvements to the roles and responsibilities of the state agency, counties, and Minnesota's tribal nations. And the final two sections are also from the governor's budget. And the first directs the Commissioner of Human Services to contract with an external vendor to continue and complete the project that was initiated under Executive Order 25-10, Section 1, Paragraph G, and requires the Commissioner to provide reports to the legislature. And finally, the last one directs the Commissioner of Children, Youth, and Families to prepare a study that assesses state and local social services agency roles for administering certain programs and licensing functions. The next thematic grouping is related to licensing and background studies. All of these are also from the governor's language. The first modifies the definition of individual who is related to include cousins and those related by marriage, and also allows programs to use to operate under the previous definition if that program was initially licensed prior to July 1st of this year. Next, there's a section that removes a loophole that allowed for a change of ownership to occur without notifying the Commissioner of Human Services. The next group of sections modify who must undergo background studies and add provider types to prohibition on providing services pending background study results. And finally, the last group of sections within this group impose a new 245D licensing moratorium for both initial licenses to provide ICS services as well as license changes to add ICS services to an existing license. They provide for limited exceptions to the ICS moratorium, impose a moratorium on approving new ICS service settings, and provides for limited exceptions to the setting approval moratorium.
Mr. Monahan.
Mr. Chair, members, the next grouping of proposals all have to do with medical assistance provider enrollment. The first set of provisions are primarily from the governor's bill. So the bill includes the recodification of the provider enrollment requirements, which can cause some confusion as you read the language, but I'll note that in this particular version, there are 4 policy changes embedded in what looks like all new language. And those are authorizing the commissioner to perform pre-enrollment risk assessments, authorizing the commissioner to terminate MA enrollment if a enrolled provider does not bill medical assistance during any 12-month period, requiring mandatory compliance training for high-risk services, and requiring all individuals providing direct care who are employees of a provider type designated as high risk to have a unique provider identifier. The next proposal is from a Senator Utke bill. It requires certain documentation for any provider, vendor, or individual seeking to enroll, become licensed, receive grant money, or register in any program administered by the Commissioner of Human Services. Next is a governor's proposal authorizing the Commissioner of Human Services to access records and documents of enrolled medical assistance providers before they begin billing. The next proposal requires an applicant or license holder who elects to receive publicly funded reimbursement for providing high-risk services to disclose to the Commissioner of Human Services whether the applicant or the license holder received any assistance from a third party in preparing the application or accompanying materials. The next proposal requires the Commissioner to establish an HCBS early and often licensure and compliance team to assist HCBS license applicants to understand the licensing requirements and provide newly licensed providers with technical assistance to comply with the licensing requirements. Next proposal requires the Commissioner to establish an HCBS provider support and technical assistance team to provide technical assistance and education to all HCBS providers and to act as a liaison between the providers and the various administrations and offices of the Department of Human Services responsible for regulating and overseeing the licensing, service provision, and billing of HCBS services.
Ms. Hoffman-Leachy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next group, the next topic group is related to medical assistance sanctions. The first grouping is from Article 1, and these sections include the recodification of Section 256B.064 relating to the medical assistance sanctions, and they also include the following policy changes, both from the Senate File 4222, A18 amendment, and Senate File 4783, authored by Senator Uckey. They define fraud in Chapter 256B, which also includes a reference to illegal remunerations. It clarifies that a payment withhold is a temporary action, and they also require the notice provided by the commissioner when withholding payments to include additional information than what is currently required. The next group is a governor's policy bill. It allows the Department of Human Services to collect on multiple surety bonds, requires that surety bonds must be purchased new annually, and requires any action to obtain monetary recovery or sanctions from a surety bond, then it must occur within 6 years. And those can be found both in Article 1 and Article 2. In Article 1, there's also a section that allows an individual or entity that receives a notice of a payment withhold to request an appeal. It requires the Commissioner of Human Services to refer the appeal request to the Office of Administrative Hearings and provides that the burden of proof is limited to whether the Commissioner can establish that there is a credible allegation of fraud. Additionally, it requires the Commissioner to provide notice to the individual or entity when the appeal process is complete. And that language can be found in Senate File 4222's A18 amendment. Another section is from the governor's budget bill. This allows the Commissioner of Human Services to use the remittance advice process as the notice to a vendor or provider when seeking monetary recovery of certain claims. The next grouping of sections are within the miscellaneous article found in Article 8. The first section is from Senate File 4672, authored by Senator Wiklund. It removes substantial from the requirement that the Commissioner of Human Services cannot implement any substantial changes to a grant funding formula without providing a report to the legislature. And the second section within that article is also from Senate File 4222, A18 amendment. It directs the Commissioner of Human Services to provide statutory language to the legislature by December 1st of this year that codifies the Department of Human Services Office of the Inspector General. The next grouping of sections relate to non-medical assistance human services sanctions, and they all are from the governor's language. The first section is for the purposes of Section 245.095. It defines convicted and fraud, moves the definition of credible allegation of fraud into the definitions subdivision within that section, and clarifies the definition of excluded. The next section expands the authority of the Commissioner of Human Services under 245.095 to stop payments when a license is suspended or revoked, when there is a criminal conviction of fraud, and when there is a background study disqualification. And finally, the final groups of sections allow the Commissioner of Human Services to suspend a license if there is a related ongoing investigation or judicial proceeding. And finally, within Article 4 is the Uniform Service Standards proposal from the governor, and it transitions services to be licensed by the Commissioner of Human Services that are currently certified, and also make additional technical and conforming changes. That concludes our presentation, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for running those through for us. Senator Gruenhagen, you had a question before we started this?
Yeah, just according to, published information, the DHS said they didn't have authority to stop fraud. And I believe it was either OLA or the Fed said, no, you do have the authority to stop the fraud. So I see a lot of these provisions as trying to address that. So are we just trying to update state statute in some of these areas? Because they evidently do have the authority, and they didn't contest that after that was explained.
Yeah, thank you, Senator Gruenhagen. I know for the work that we do, Senator Abler had begun talking about, we had concerns, HSS and then ICS, so to codify. So this really is to try to compile everybody's thoughts and ideas. And if you can see, when you look through that, there's a lot of people that were involved and a lot of bills involved. So hopefully it gives them direction. I don't know if that answers it directly. Senator Fata has an answer to that, though.
I don't have it. I just have comments.
You want to wait for Glenn? You got one.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Yeah, just to follow up, the other thing that concerns me is we had laws that could have been implemented to address this fraud many, many years ago. And the thing is, the whistleblowers that came forward were actually threatened and persecuted to be silenced. In other words, we could pass as many laws as we want, but if we have an attitude in DHS to allow fraud and to persecute those who come forward to whistleblow on it, I just don't know, they can just ignore this. Or is there something in here to bring a consequence to the leadership in DHS if they pursue down that road again?
Thanks, Glenn, let's, as we move this through, if there's something that's missing in there, add to it. This really is the scope of the integrity, the scope of this. What are the gaps this is what we've been trying to address here. So if you're seeing something that you want to add to it, you can do it. But here's what I need to do. Senator Zainab needs to get out of here by 10 o'clock.
Okay.
So I want to get, but 9:55, that's fine. So if we could, get to the amendments, let's get some work going, that would be great.
Yeah, one quick comment. I would like to see that if there is a certain percentage of fraud discovered in DHS, that the commissioner, whoever that is terminated. I think we need to put some teeth in here to get rid of people who aren't going to address the fraud. Just my thought. Thank you.
Got it. Thank you, Glenn. I actually get that in writing. Senator Fateh, you got an amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I was just looking through. I was wondering if Mr. Monahan can start from the beginning. No, I'm joking, Mr. Monahan. I was hoping he gave me a look. I was wondering, Mr. Chair, so I had a few comments, but I think he wanted instead to go through the amendments, so I'll just wait for that.
It's good you have it. All right, there's a bunch that were posted. We had talked previously. Do you have yours ready to go? Yeah, but I think you want to go, Senator Abler? Did you want to go in order, the green sheet, or you guys just, Oh, I got the green sheet. I'm sorry. You used to have a green sheet. Senator Abler, you had you wanted to do the A18, but I think there's a lot of the A18 that's in here.
Well,
what
Mr.
are the
Chair,
missing components?
I'll offer the A18. And so it's not my intention to vote on it, but now we're just talking about it. So, and I'm not going to go on and on about the surprise of us, but until Saturday afternoon, I thought we were going to be working off the A18 because we've done so much work on it as a collaborative effort. I understand that the A13 has the specific elements of the A18 that are not in there verbatim, and we'll talk about the A13 later, except for the 90 days. And there's like 4 pages of identical language from the A18 in there. And just, it's good we keep the ideas there, but and some of the ideas that are in the A18 and the A13 that are not in the bill came out of Senate Representative Hicks. And so as we try to get something done, I think it's smart to take all the voices in before we get into a place where we're just going to move to automatic impasse. So with that, I'll withdraw the A18, Mr. Chair.
Okay, and you're tracking that because I noticed on the A18. So Senator Fateh.
No, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just be very brief. I think Senator Abler is right. We had a lot of discussions about this over the weekend, and I think that this is has a lot of language of the A18, except for like 3 major provisions: the 90-day thing, the change of ownership thing, and then I think around the surety bond. So I think Senator Abler might have those 3 amendments, and maybe Glenn might have one of them too. But and I think we'll be good.
Sounds good. I have there's an A1. Who has the A1? That requires the department to share data from MCOs to other MCOs.
Mr. Chair, I'll offer the A1.
Thank you. Senator Edke, to your amendment. Members, do you have that? Did you pass it out?
It should have been in the packet.
All right, awesome. You want to tell us what?
Yep. Mr. Chair and members, the A1 amendment would require an increase in communication between DHS and the MCOs when credible allegations of fraud are suspected. Currently, if an MCO suspects fraud, this information can only be relayed to DHS for scrutiny and next steps. DHS may communicate these suspicions to other MCOs so they can heighten their scrutiny of that provider. But DHS is not required to do so. This change in the A1 amendment would require information to flow back through the MCOs so they can monitor suspected fraudulent providers.
Nicely done. Is that our committee, or you're on both committees, so which one do you?
Right, yeah. So now, when you go committee to committee, do we vote with both hands?
I like that. Members, Senator Wiklund.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Utke, can you tell me if this has been reviewed with DHS? I mean, I think the idea, the concept I think is worthwhile, that, that MCOs, you know, that the information gets shared. It seems like things would be more efficient. I just want to understand whether this language has been socialized with DHS. Do they have any feedback?
Senator Utke.
Mr. Chair and Madam Chair, frankly, I don't know, because as we've already talked, this bill came about Saturday. These amendments are coming about on Sunday. Now, if the department wants to come down and tell us whether they were communicated with or not by those that brought this information to us, that would be great. But I think with the matter of time, I doubt many conversations were had, other than this came from those that are involved, and, you know, they saw a loophole. And, you know, my other comment was going on here earlier when we talk about what may be missing and what, et cetera. You know, I always go by the conversation or the term more is less. The more we finally define everything, the less there is, because they'll find that loophole. It isn't, that word isn't in there exactly. So we got to be careful we don't do that. But in this case, we're just basically saying that DHS needs to communicate back out to the MCOs so that they're a working partnership. They should be communicating.
Thank you. Oh, sorry.
No, you're good. It's all you.
Thank you, Senator Utke. I guess I think, you know, in the interest of time, I think this one is acceptable to me, as long as we can have more discussion about it. I think there was language about working with the MCOs and DHS in the governor's proposal, and I think the plans have had opportunity to review that and bring forward input, and they haven't done that, to me anyway. So, but I do think that data sharing amongst them should be happening, and we can keep working on, you know, making sure that the language is acceptable. So I'm willing to take this one if others are.
And Mr. Chair,
Senator Utke.
I'll add one more thing to touch on the question a little bit. These things were heard and discussed and laid over in the other body, so the department should be fully aware of what took place in the conversations.
So
I wasn't involved in those.
I love it. Senator Utke. Senator Omar Fateh's got a specific question for you, since you didn't raise it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a major concern, Senator Utke. How much is this going to cost us?
Zero.
For those that don't know, in the other body, that's Senator Utke is our fiscal. He always asks that question every time. How much is this going to cost? So that was I think we're good. I got thumbs up from everybody here. Yeah. So Anna and Sam, I think let's include the Utke. Yes, we're good. Yeah. Thank you, Senator Utke. The A2, and then Jordan and Liz are online. You guys, I guess I can see you here, but I just, if I haven't paid attention, if you raise your hand, I will be paying attention. So there's an
Mr. Chair?
Senator Utke.
I will offer the A2 amendment.
I love it. Senator Utke.
Mr. Chair, this one also involves the MCOs. A2 would preserve an MCO's ability to credential and contract with providers in MA. MCOs perform these tasks to verify the credentials of a provider, perform a background check, and ensure a provider has a track record of providing high-quality care. However, we've seen recently, especially in the Housing Stabilization Services Program, in a rush to implement the program, due diligence of providers was not performed. And we want to avoid this when new programs are enacted in the future. So it's just laying the groundwork to make sure that we don't overlook something just because of time. We got to do it right.
Senator Wiklund.
Mr. Chair, Senator Edke, again, is this one, do you know, I mean, you mentioned that these have been discussed in the House. Is this another one that has been discussed in the House and vetted with DHS?
Yeah, Madam Chair, exactly. These two were both partners or a pair of amendments and part of the conversation in the other bodies. So again, the department would have had input at that point, and just that they were held in over across the street, but not here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think this one, it seems reasonable. I think I'd like to have more discussion about it, but I would be willing, if others would like to see this included, I'd be willing to take it forward.
Madam Chair, I looked down and I got all thumbs up from the folks, so there you go. We're good in the human services side, so. That brings us, so the A2, good. A3, is that you, Senator Utke?
Mr. Chair, it is. I didn't know it was in the packet. I hadn't looked that far forward, but I will not be offering that one.
All right, A3 is not being offered. There's an A4.
Mr. Chair, I have the A4, would like to offer it at this time and happy to explain the amendment.
Awesome, thank you, Senator Rasmussen. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The A4 is a bill that was worked on by Minnesota Management of the Budget as part of the governor's proposal. Effectively, what it would do is it would give agencies across the state enterprise the same authority that has been granted to DHS and DCYF on temporary payment withholding. Currently, those other agencies have temporary authority that is set to expire in 2027. And so this would give them permanent authority and give them the same evidentiary standard that we currently have for DHS and DCYF. This proposal has been heard in the other body and has passed off the floor of the other body. And so I think this would be a common sense item for us to include in a program integrity package.
Thank you. Members, questions? I have one. Senator Rasmussen, that the 15.013, would that have to go to state government? Do you know with that? I got a yes, somebody yelled at the end. Do you know, Senator?
Mr. Chair, I believe the underlying bill has been referred to the Committee on State and Local Government, and so it would be up to the chair if they would want to hear the bill or not.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Members, any questions for Senator Rasmussen? Senator Wiklund.
Mr. Chair, I would have, I'd express concerns about having this contained in the bill. For one thing, it would have to would be heard in state government, and it is something that would apply enterprise-wide. This is not strictly just DHS and DCYF like we're talking about in this bill. So I think this needs more vetting and more discussion, and I have strong concerns about it being included without having that discussion take place.
Thank you. This is where we have, we got 5 yeses over here in the Human Services side.
Mr. Chair.
Senator Rasmussen.
And I just want to, I don't understand what the problem is. The language in this amendment passed the other body's floor unanimously. And I think Minnesota taxpayers, they don't really care where fraud occurs in terms of which agency or which acronym it generated from, but I think this is something that we have a bipartisan group of legislators who have worked on this language. MMB, the governor, is asking for this additional tool to help stop fraud. If this is going to be the program integrity omnibus for the Senate, I think this is a very appropriate item for us to include, and this has been thoroughly reviewed and vetted in the other body, garnering a unanimous vote on the House floor.
Thank you. So, members, there is a disagreement here. So I guess this one, roll call. Glenn asked for a roll call. How many roll calls is Human Services?
Mr. Chair, I think it's worth pursuing. I don't know why you'd want to not do this. And this is kind of a buffet of things. There's a bunch of things in the bill that I am not going to be supporting that I'm going to talk about as we move forward. And so
Yep.
we're not all going to agree on everything, but I think the more you can throw into the mix, whatever that means, this is not the last stop of the bill, Mr. Chair.
It is not. I appreciate that.
Mr. Chair,
Senator.
I just reading through it, I'm trying to understand why there would be opposition at the moment. Obviously, this is just an idea. I don't think this is the final product, nor will this be the final stop. I mean, I even have questions about it. Looking at it, it looks like it's giving permission to withhold payments and stop payments, which as a provider myself, I'd be concerned if I'm submitting and not doing anything fraudulent, and now I somehow am withheld for months and months, and that could lead to closures of businesses. But at the same time, we have to give some kind of authority to a body for oversight, and if that oversight leads to stopping fraud, I don't see how this would be a bad thing to discuss. And I think maybe just fleshing out where those withholdings would be and maybe changing a few words in here would change it. But obviously not a lot of time to do that today, but over the course of the next couple of weeks, hopefully we could get something figured out.
Mr. Chair.
Senator?
I just got a note from the ether that this may conflict with the camera review, in-camera review, but the DHS says they can fix it and they are okay with it, but it can be fixed. So if you want to either just move forward with it now or bring it up later, I don't care, but so that's what I know, so.
Senator Wiklund.
Mr. Chair, I really strongly believe this might create other ambiguities with other language that is either in the program integrity bill or that should be worked out before we include it in this bill.
Put it aside.
With that, we'll set it aside then, members, and let's work on it. Senators, I think I saw DHS, they were shaking their head yes in agreement to what you were saying. So that's the ether that you were talking to. So let's just set this one aside. Senator Rasmussen, thank you for bringing that. When you get back in here, let's have a conversation on the floor. So I like this. Who else?
I guess, Mr. Chair, I mean, one question I have is, like, is this a committee hearing, I guess? I mean, and what I mean by that is, we don't have an actual bill number in front of us. I don't know if we're actually going to be taking votes on amendments today. I'm just kind of wondering a little bit of the process. Like, do we know what bill this language is eventually going to get amended onto? I'm just, curious about the process here.
Thank you, Senator Rasmussen. And here's how it was laid out, was that we would have, because I would have liked to, but there's something about rules. The Senate has rules, I guess. We have to follow the rules. You can't do a joint hearing where you do one y'all come, right? It's individualized. If you wanted to, on our Human Services Committee, we could take this to a vote if you wanted to, because we are indeed doing, just like the Health Committee is doing indeed in there. But it was our desire was to get the conversation going here about things that people saw that were missing and added or deleted from. And if there was kind of universal agreement on something, then the next draft that is written before we go to the next committee that it needs to go to, that stuff would be taken care of appropriately. And so in this case, you have Human Services, 5 individuals on the Human Services Committee who are all saying thumbs up to what you're providing here. And the health, there's still concerns. And so I don't, if you wanted to, we could take a vote on the Human Services side of it, but we still have to deal on the health side of it and to overcome the objectives that, are laid out there because of some state and local government issues, which I played one time in a play as state person, but I never sat in state and local government committee, Senator Rasmussen. I don't know if that's helpful.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess, my overall concern is, are we going to, as we proceed through amendments here, is a single member going to be able to effectively veto an amendment from being offered and voted on? And I guess overall, my concern is, it sounds like the Human Services Committee and the Health and Human Services Committee are not really going to have a real opportunity to mark up this bill. And I guess that's my broader concern, given the importance of program integrity. And, this is a lot of money, a lot of, language in front of us that, I think the Human Services Committee at least, and I would suspect that my colleagues in the Health Committee, think that there should be an opportunity to mark up and actually consider and vote on amendments.
Thank you. I mean, if you want to, we can do in the Human Services, we can go ahead and do a call, for vote on the Human Services side, right? We can do both. So, all those in the Human Services Committee in favor of the Rasmussen amendment, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That passes. So, Health Committee, what are you thinking? This is like, yeah. Oh, you got roll call sheets? I wasn't clued in on the roll call sheets, so.
Mr. Chair?
That's cool. Senator Abler.
Oh, Mr. Chair, and, this bill has a long ways to go, and Senator Rasmussen, I think there's a lot of friendliness toward this, but Senator Wiklund, on the whole thing of all this, this has to be our bill, and it cannot be, just with respect, the two of your bills, if it's ever going to pass. And just so as we move forward, I hope that there can be an inclusiveness about all these ideas, and I think it may need some work with DHS, and that's all I'm just saying, but I want to get something done, and so do you. So I'm just suggesting to my good colleague that he put the amendment aside for now and not put us into a position where we're going to vote for or against on two halves and all that. And I know your intentions are to make this our bill, so that's my effort at just moving us along. So that's all I got.
Senator Mann.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with you, Senator Abler, that it should be our bill. And then the last three amendments we heard, they've been heard in the House and not in the Senate. We haven't had proper discussions about any of this stuff on our side. So I'm a little confused as to what's going on along with Senator Rasmussen here. It feels like this language has been out for many weeks and we're just throwing amendments on at the last minute without proper discussion. The whole process just feels kind of irresponsible.
So here's then I will take full credit for that irresponsibility. Why did we start a session in February when we knew that there were some real issues sitting at our table? Shame on those people who decided, let's wait till the middle of February. And here we sit, we've had 5 people die because of decisions that were made outside of the legislature. I will take full accountability on this process. I thought this would be let's have a conversation, let's get something that we can do together and hopefully get it. Because really, we don't need to do anything because the agencies are all paid for right? And so I sit here and I go, and so I'm wondering if we, having the discussion to me is an open process that I think is valid and has merit. And we don't have the luxury of starting in January so we could have an extra month to really go through these things. But if the other body has already vetted some of this stuff, then it makes sense to have the conversation. So, I'm just as confused about this as anybody else, but I saw no other avenue for us to have this discussion in the amount of time that we don't have now in 2 weeks to do what we all know we need to do. And so with that, I can just adjourn us and we can just move on and then, right? Or we can try to come up with a consensus around some things. Senator Abler had pushed out saying on the Rasmussen amendment, let's just hold that off. Let's move on. Let's have deeper, more conversations. Fine. Because at the end of the day, this process, however fragmented it is going to end up in some kind of finance, judiciary. We got a long way to go. So there's many stops along the way. Senator Utke.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And along the lines of your conversation right there, I hope that the conversations that are had involve our committees. I see way too much in this bill from my comfort zone that says it came from the agency. the agency's been running this for years, and we're trying to come up with some solutions, whether it's to help them or to give them things that they need to do to reel this in and do things according to how we see is the right way. So I would highly encourage those conversations to be among those of us here at this table. You can bounce things off the agency, but I don't like it when I see a whole bill that says it came from, well, the governor's bill, which is the agency bill. That's my concern. I want to keep it around the table here, and I hope as this moves forward, it's the input of the members that is the most important.
Well said. Senator Rasmussen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I guess, a little confused on what we're doing here. And I'm happy to withdraw this amendment, even though I think we're like halfway through a vote, as long as I have commitments from you and Senator Wiklund that I'll get a chance to offer this as an amendment and have it be voted on at some point, even if that's the Senate floor, because this is not a gotcha amendment. This amendment is Senator Rest's bill that has passed the other body unanimously. It's a proposal from the governor, and the administration is asking us to pass this into law this year to help them have more tools to combat fraud. We got it posted as soon as it was available. And so I'm happy to withdraw, Mr. Chair, and Senator Wiklund, as long as I have a commitment that we can have a vote on this at some point as this bill moves through the process.
Mr. Chair.
Madam Chair.
Senator Rasmussen, I certainly am committed to reviewing it further. I just think that today, when we're trying to get consensus on amendments for discussion and inclusion at the next step, that this one is one that I feel strongly should have more discussion before that, rather than including it and then having the discussion. If you want to have us take a vote, we can, but I just would very much appreciate being able to talk about it more, since it does extend beyond this committee's jurisdiction.
Senator Rasmussen to that, and then Senator Fate has a question. Senator Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, I'm asking you, Mr. Chair, and Senator Wiklund, if I'm not even asking you to vote for this amendment, but just wanted to ask for your commitment that I'll have the opportunity to offer this amendment on the Senate floor to be able to have a vote on it. Again, my goal is to stop fraud, and you have a bipartisan group that have recognized that this language will help stop fraud, and just trying to work to make sure that we give state agencies this tool this session.
Thank you, Senator Rasmussen. And that's the whole process, is in my opinion on how we do ideation, and this is what it's about. Here's the baseline. Our staff did a great job of compiling a lot of people's stuff, right? A lot of bills. And then coming to us, Senator Wiklund and I wanted to have this open conversation because it's ideation. There's no right or wrong in this one, right? But it's getting something that we can all then move forward and keep working on. So you have my commitment, Senator Rasmussen, even up until we promised certain people that we would not do an A-19 on any of our committee work. Do you remember this, folks? Like we did last year. But you have my commitment, and I think you heard it from Senator Wiklund, her commitment that, yeah, this has to continue. This is an open conversation. So that's my point. Senator Fate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I think some of the confusion that Senator Mann brought up is kind of also due to this being a joint hearing. I just joined HHS this year, so I'm not sure about the conversations that were being had last year. But on the human services side, a lot of the language is stuff that originated last year that a lot of members have been discussing and talking about. And the underlying bill, I think Senator Abler brought up the A-18, is language that we've discussed, people had their input on.
Yep.
But I think at the end, some of the governor's recommendations were put into this also. But the underlying language was stuff that you, Mr. Chair, everyone had input on that we discussed. And I think that it maybe wasn't discussed on the HHS side, that they haven't seen it. But I still think it's still productive and really good work that has been had. So I just wanted to make that clarification. That doesn't mean I'm a yes on this amendment either. It being Senator Rest's bill doesn't move me to a yes either. But I would say that I'm happy to work with Senator Rasmussen on this, but I think some of the
She's listening, by the way.
indigestion.
Did you know that?
Yeah, it's cool. I think some of the indigestion is just coming from all the recommendations that are coming from the governor's side, and I'm saying this on behalf of the Freedom Caucus.
Whiskey. Oh, my God. Senator Rasmussen, thank you for this conversation. Senator
Thank you,
Mohammed.
Mr. Chair.
Yep.
Or, go ahead, you can go, Senator Mohammed.
Senator Mohammed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have to get going soon, but I just wanted to take a moment to thank our nonpartisan staff. They worked around the clock all weekend to put this bill together. And sometimes we don't recognize when we have them draft amendments and we pull them just to make a point, the fact that is them doing that work. And I just really appreciate them. I wanted to take a moment before we leave to thank them.
Thank you, Senator Zaina Mohammed. That is absolutely, people see this conversation, but it's really the four folks that we had at the very beginning, Liam, Ali, Kyle, and Dennis, really, they don't, this is what they do, and it's really, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them, so we appreciate that. Senator Wiklund, we're getting up on that hour where we need to, I don't know, I guess recess. There's still so much that we just started to scratch the surface here.
Mr. Chair, what's the schedule today?
10 o'clock, Senator Zaina Mohammed and a couple of other people have to leave our committee to go at 9:55. They need to leave. So, and then we have floor at 11. And I would assume, the reason why this was picked is because the schedule, trying to get, when Anna and Sam looked at scheduling, that's what it is. But we could recess at the call of Senator Wiklund and then just,
Are we going to come back today then?
I don't know, Anna, Sam, opinions on, you think there's? Okay, I mean, we could.
Well, Mr. Chair, if we're going to recess, can I just run a list of things that I need to know about in the draft?
Yeah.
And, to Senator Mann, I mean, this whole process is unusual, and I'm not trying to
I've never done this, Jim. Have you done it like this?
Actually, in 2011, we did a joint hearing when we had to cut 1.8635 billion, and it was hell. Anyway, so there's just, I'll just run through a list so people know the questions I'm going to ask. And I went through this bill and I had at least 50 lines I had questions about. But so, there's just some impossibilities. Like these assessments have to be done by the department before July 1 of this year. Like, that's crazy. On line 27.1, line 28.12, you have to purchase new policies annually. Why can't you keep the old one? There's on line 30.1, there's only one chance to appeal and then you're out. That seems like not a good idea. 31.1, where you're kicking people out, but only if you're you're saved only if you're a pediatric provider. But if you just didn't have any clients it's just not thought through well. 32.14, this UMP number thing for everybody is not a workable thing. We talked about that. Surety bonds, 33.2, surety bonds for all durable providers, really? What about the people who are doing well? In this prepayment review on 34.1, that will generate $167 million in savings and impact the industry $340 million and put people out of business. For nothing. And so there's language that the department was going to give me about allowing high-risk people to be reviewed. And the post-payment clawback on 3512, is there actually a process about that if you want to appeal it? Is that even constitutional?
My understanding on that 340 million, Jim, is that they're still waiting on some TA, so.
Yeah, but it needs to be, if you need it, not
Yep.
to have a nursing home do a prepay, but that's in the governor's budget, that 167 million is in the budget.
Yeah.
So they're not kidding, Mr. Chair. I'm just trying to go through my list.
No,
We're
keep going. I
leaving
won't.
here.
Yep, go ahead.
44, 3 to 18, the final agency decision, then that's the end. They can submit evidence based upon not knowing anything. How can you do that? And so we're talking to Mr. Wonka over at the AG, and there's some discrepancies in what they need and what DHS say they can't do. And because there are honest people caught up in this. If you're a fraud, we all want to put them out of business and send them to unemployment land. And on 47.22, the commissioner reconsiders the whatever they did before, and there's no appeal. So they're gonna have the same people look at what they said no to before and say no again, and then that's it. Like what? On line 63.11, you can be kicked out for an administrative investigation, which is the current investigations we have where it's an indicia. And I mean, if it's a real thing, there's some other real things, but the administrative part is extremely low to actually must kick out. And then there's a whole bunch of stuff about all these changes with CCBHC and ARMS, and is that just recodifying? I just need to know that. Does behavioral health need a new license? On 85.27, is the commissioner's order final? And then the issues, I think there's amendments, Mr. Chair, about the insurance cap for nursing homes, the nursing rate limits, and the remote supports we talked about, and this takeover Medicaid assessments is like, I can't imagine giving them one new job. So those are the bulk of my things. And on some of these studies, Mr. Chair, Madam Chair, some of these studies, let's wait for a new governor. There's going to be a new one. They're going to have an approach. The governor we have has, been whatever he is, but he's not checked in on this part. And I think in terms of direction where the department should go, in 7 months or whatever it is, there's going to be somebody new doing this. And they could start their guidance in November, whichever way it goes, if it's Lisa or Amy or, whoever it's going to be. But then they can get, whatever they're going to do, they're both going to talk about a fresh start. So that's my advice on some of these transition things. So that's just my 5 through, Mr. Chair, and we'll talk more whenever we come back. But this is not going anywhere until we come back, right?
Correct. And the other thing too is Zana, when she was leaving, said she has some stuff on the 813. So no, there's still, this is exactly what you're going through and what she's saying. So let's recess for 5 minutes so we can come back with a plan of what's next. And
thank you, Mr. Chair.
That work for everybody? And Liskey can buy me coffee. welcome back. We will entertain some conversations here until 10:50, and then we're going to recess at the call. It will be at probably, if floor session doesn't go too long, maybe a half hour after floor session is done. I'm taking the over on that one, Liskey. I don't know about you, but that would be 30 minutes. We would try to do 30 minutes. And then to get through our process is going to be to get through the amendments, each deliberative division is going to vote on, right? We will yay or nay, and then we go forward. And then I think, because Zainab Mohammed's got some questions on the A13.
I can wait.
But that can wait. We can do that. But if that sounds reasonable to people, we have in front of us the Rasmussen A4. Senator Rasmussen, to your A4.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and appreciate the opportunity to get into the A4. I think this has been highlighted as really important program integrity language, and if this bill in front of us is going to be the program integrity package from the Minnesota Senate this year, I think it's very important that we have it included. Again, this is a bill that has bipartisan authorship in the Senate. Senator Rest is the chief author, I'm the co-author. It's a proposal from Minnesota Management Budget, and this language passed the other body unanimously. And so I think it's important that we include it in this package going forward. I would ask for member support.
Do we have the sheet? Want to start with human services or health? Human services.
And Mr. Chair, I'm gonna withdraw the A4, but you know, as people get a chance to look at it, but if it's not included, I do plan on reoffering it when I get a chance.
Which you will have multiple chances to reauthor this thing on the way. We got still, you know, I mean, the Wild almost won last night, you know, back and forth. It was, you know, you thought they were going to win it, and there was lots of time left in the game. So A4 is withdrawn. Thank you, Senator Rasmussen. A5.
Mr. Chair, I'll move to A5. That's
Senator
from
Abler.
Senator Nelson. This was heard in our committee, I think. And there was some concern by Senator McQuaid about data privacy, and it's been addressed. And I think everybody has signed off on this, to my understanding.
So, department, everybody's good? Did you?
Other Senator McQuaid.
Senator McQuaid's name. Look who's here.
So that's all I know. I'm just offering it as a courtesy, Senator. You see, here's the amendment. Did you see it?
Senator Rasmussen and Senator McQuaid were the two, I think, Senator Wiklund in our committee that had that raised the issue of data privacy, and so they've addressed that. Senator Abler, is that my
Thanks, and
understanding?
Ms. Reed is here if you want to have testimony.
Senator McQuaid.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I think what I said in the committee hearing was that I wanted this to go through the Judiciary Committee that deals with this topic. And I don't, has it gone through that?
Wait, I have a person who knows the answer to that
Great.
question.
We don't have time for testimony in this, but you know, if you have an answer to Senator McQuaid's question, Senator Reed or Melissa Reed, that would be great.
Mr. Chair and Senator, no. It was reviewed by Judiciary Council to help craft the language you have in front of you, but no, it has not as a standalone. I believe, Mr. Chair, if I understood, the entire integrity package might be moving to Judiciary, so we could, you know, absolutely take, you know, further work there if you feel like it's needed.
Senator McQuaid.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I think when this came before the committee as an amendment last time and then this time, like this is a very large change to be making to non-emergency medical transportation. That's, I think, more than an amendment. I think it's a bill. I think it goes to Judiciary. I think it probably goes to HHS. I think it comes here as well. I just don't, I'm not comfortable. I'm particularly sensitive to the ways in which tech companies are intruding into our lives. And if we're gonna have it happen in non-emergency medical transportation, it should happen through the committee process and not through amendment.
Senator
Mr. Chair,
Abler.
just to keep things moving. we don't need to vote on it. I think the general idea was we like the idea of it conceptually, and so I think whoever goes to the committee, if they could at least offer that as a discussion, then I would be happy to withdraw it now.
Thank you. So going to judiciary, they're gonna have.
So if it can be just carried forward that somebody will bring it up as an amendment and see what they want to do with it, then that's good by me.
That's good,
Thank
I'm
you.
glad. Thank you for all your work on that, and thank you.
Senator Nelson, actually.
Thank you. A6. Did you guys ever see that movie where the guy said, anyone A6? I think that's Senator Abler.
Okay, I'd move to A6.
Senator Abler.
Could Mr. Monahan just save us time and describe it for us?
Yes, Mr. Monahan.
Mr. Chair, members, the A8, sorry, the A6.
Well, this is New Mexico, is that right?
Yes.
So this is a New Mexico plan that says if they are willing to put up their house as collateral and keep working, they can still work. And Mr. Monahan can describe the details. So the concern is that people are crooks and they're going to just keep stealing money. The people that are sincerely trying to remediate all their stuff and want to serve their people, if they put up a surety bond and do some other criteria to be scrutinized, they can keep working and serving their 30 people or whatever. It'll probably cost them 10% of their money to keep working. So that's the summary of it. Mr. Monahan can answer technical details.
Mr. Monahan.
Mr. Chair, members, Senator Abler described the basic concept accurately. It would allow a provider who is subject to a withhold following a credible allegation of fraud to post an additional surety bond. In addition to the surety bond, they may already have purchased as a requirement for MA provider enrollment. And the value of the surety bond would either be the total value of the previously withheld funds or a calculation provided by DHS, I guess to their belief of the risk exposure to the MA program provided that results from the conduct of the subject to the withhold. And if they post the surety bond, DHS would release the withheld funds for previously provided services. And if in the end, of course, the credible allegation of fraud was held to be substantiated, DHS would collect on the surety bond.
Senator Fateh.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's also conversations I had with Senators Gruenhagen and Senator Abler. And so this would both protect, as Liam said, the funds that were spent, but also, I believe, the ongoing payments as well with these surety bonds. And so the state wouldn't be on the hook for any of this stuff. The funds would be fully insured while maintaining the continuing of services. And so I think it's a good amendment.
Interesting. Senator Abler?
No.
Senator Liskey to the amendment.
So surety bonds are definitely an interesting approach on the fraud side of things. It's something that I had thrown around with actually some constituents of mine over the interim. They were offering ideas. Of course, you get into town halls and you have people offering their ideas, and bonds were a way that they thought they could hold people accountable. So if you, I don't know if this is the exact right way to do it, but basically you hold an insurance that basically will cover your cost of your fraud if you are fraudulent. And so the state has somebody to go after, or has something to go after if you are found guilty of that fraud, instead of having the situation where we have people who stole millions of dollars from both the state and federal government, and there's no money for them to take back. So now the fine to that person is less than 1% of what they stole, and there's no way to hold them accountable. Where if there's a surety bond, this creates the ability for the state to be reimbursed at the value of whatever they stole. So I think it's good. I don't know if this is the right language or perfect language around it, but it's definitely a subject that I think we should push forward and probably hold on to.
Mr. Chair, I would say that there is surety bond language in the bill already that relates to when surety bonds are required. This, to me, seems like a totally different concept to have a withheld money released if someone posts the surety bond. I guess I would question, what is the process? What is the process for establishing the amount that would go, that would need to be purchased? And then what if the investigation takes a huge amount of time? Then if the money has been released because they posted the surety bond, but then the state would be obligated, we wouldn't get the money back until the process is complete, is what I'm understanding. So it seems like it transfers risk to the department, and I think it needs a full discussion about what the process would be to understand what the implications are of that.
Senator Abler?
Well, thank you, Senator Hoffman and Senator Wiklund. I hope that we can work on this as an included piece. Right now, there are people that are indefinitely in withhold land. And part of the reason why those 5 people died and why a bunch of people are homeless, lacking services, is because actually good providers have gotten snagged up in something, and maybe they did something that's been appropriately flagged, or maybe it was inappropriate flagged. And there's a mix of how those are resolved. Some are found to be no evidence of fraud. The AG will look at them. And there's a bunch of those that are still snagged up in this whole thing. But a good provider who has found themselves in harm's way needs to have a way to try to preserve their business, their staff, their client base. And the people, the young 20-year-olds who are driving Range Rovers are not going to do this, because they're just going to take the money and flee like that one guy took off. But I think this gives a way for a valid provider to try to salvage something. They're not going to make any money. They might lose money with the cost of these bonds. But I hope that we can put this in and continue to explore it, work with the department and whoever to get detail about it. Because we've talked about this, but there are truly quality providers that have been snagged up. So that's the point of it. It's probably a work in progress, but I think it's valid, and I hope we can carry it forward today.
You promised to work with Ms. Bailey at the Department of Human Services to get it unconvoluted, or what is that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As painful as that might be, she's very good to work with. I would love to work with her.
I know that. I was just throwing out. It's a different concept. It's like, because the thing that's scary, sorry, Senator Wiklund, but this was really the issue of.
This is a real thing in New Mexico. So not that we model ourselves after that, but maybe they have a good idea that's actually functioning. So, thanks.
Mr. Chair.
All right. Senator.
I guess the only other concern I'd have around this being that, fiscal hawk that I tend to be at times, with a surety bond or any kind of insurance, it costs money, no matter how you slice it. And so is this going to increase the cost of care? Is this going to increase the cost of those services? Because these organizations that do want to protect, and they're going to be good organizations that are willing to put these surety bonds in place, they're going to have to pay for it somehow. They're going to have to hold on to it. It's going to cost money. And I think that's where Senator Wiklund maybe is most concerned, is how does this keep it from increasing the cost of care? And I do see that passing on to this bill here. Do I think the idea is good? Yes. Am I concerned about the cost of care increasing because of having to carry this? Also, yes. So, something to worry about.
I was laughing. I was looking at Senator Wiklund and I was going, all right, I see how this is laying out. This is actually, sure enough, the fiscal hawks over here, you two. Utke, we're going to lose you can't have that anymore. Senator Curran.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And to follow up on Senator Liskey, at the end of the day, we're asking the private insurance companies to do the underwriting and assess the risk. And there is going to be cost that has to be borne somewhere. So we'll be here asking for the rates to be increased. And at the same time, we're still not talking about how do we make government more effective. They actually need to do their jobs. in the agencies for which we've already paid for. And I see the greatest challenge that we have is what about, in our environment that we operate, what about those that can't get a surety bond? We're going to not allow them to be providers in this state? Because we've got so many areas today where we've willfully enabled and looked the other way to enable people to continue to be providers. And so those are the challenges. It sounds good. It may be something we should probably talk about, but we're just wrapping it around. We're going to try to offload the burden onto somebody for which we failed to do as a state agency to manage every aspect of a program that they've had the responsibility since existence of the agency. And the poorer they do their jobs, the greater greater need we're looking for somebody else to do their job for them and to reduce the risk. Why? So it's a solution to a symptom of a failed delivery of the current system. Thank you.
Senator Fata.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And to answer Senator Liskey's question, I would say no. The surety bond only kicks in the event that a company does have a payment withhold. But also, not everyone that pursues a surety bond will get accepted. There are some folks that will get rejected also, and I think that should be taken into account. And as Senator Abler said, that the folks that are potentially the bad actors will not be pursuing this either. So I strongly suggest that.
Final word, Senator Abler, it's your amendment.
Well, there are some people that they're going to go out the back door otherwise. So what are they supposed to do?
Yeah.
And so, Senator Liskey, you've got a clinic, and so you don't take, I don't know if you take Medicaid, but so suddenly insurance companies will stop paying you because of some assertion which likely is not even true. But now you're sitting there in limbo with Blue Cross or somebody waiting for the checks to come, and they don't come, and now you're just going to get kicked out. Like, what? You say, how about if I promise that we're going to prove to you that we're right? Can I buy some time? This buys time, that's all. So I hope we can just let it go forward and work on it. So that's all I'm looking for, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. To that point, looks like.
They're okay.
Yeah. How do you want to do this? All right.
Thank you.
Senator Abler.
We'll keep working. So it's in then?
What are you doing?
So it's in?
No, we're going to roll call it in.
Seriously?
Yeah, that's what we talked
All
about.
right, that's fine. I guess
Okay.
we'll do a roll call.
All right.
That's what, I mean, Senator Wiklund, I don't know why you don't like this idea. I mean, you get to not like what you don't like, but there are people going out the back door. There are people that are out of business today because they're going to be found innocent later.
Well, it's just our process.
all. All right.
You're in the back, Jim, you were back
So
there when we were talking about.
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
That's good. We're just going to, so our committee, they're, that's what we're going to do.
Fine, I guess. Sure.
Chair Hoffman,
Aye.
Vice Chair Fata,
Yes.
Lead Rasmussen, Senator Abler,
Yes.
Senator Gruenhagen.
Yes.
Senator McQuaid. Senator Mohammed. Senator Utke.
Yes.
Senator Wiklund. No. Senator McQuaid. Lead Rasmussen.
Chair Wiklund? No. Vice Chair Mann? No. Lead Utke?
Yes.
Senator Abler?
Yes, again.
Senator Bolden?
No.
Senator Fate?
Yes.
I'm going yes for now.
Senator Coran?
Yes.
Senator Kupek? Senator Liskey?
Yes.
Senator Port?
I think it will help. You get to have your opinion.
Yeah, go ahead.
For the HHS roll call, it was 5 yes and 4 no. This one is accepted.
Human Services, it's 5 yea and 1 no. It is also accepted. So the A6 will be placed into the work. And that's good. Thank you. A7, who's got the A7?
Is that me again? Okay.
Senator Abler.
I think I'll just have Mr. Monahan explain it for the sake of time.
Mr. Monahan.
Mr. Chair, members, The A7 represents one of the major pieces of Senator Abler's A18 amendment to Senate File 4222. This was a provision included in the A18 that provided a mechanism that would require DHS every 90 days to re-examine whether or not a payment withhold should continue for an additional 90 days. It would be a automatic procedure where an administrative law judge would review or re-review the commissioner's submissions of evidence and information to justify the credibility of an allegation of fraud, and if the administrative law judge agreed that there were that the standard was met to establish a credible allegation of fraud, the administrative law would recommend to the commissioner that the withhold continue. If the administrative judge found that the standard for establishing a credible allegation of fraud was not met, the administrative law judge would recommend to the commissioner that the withhold be stopped. But in any case, the ultimate decision remains with the commissioner.
Mr. Chair.
Senator Abler, could you?
And so this
Yeah,
is
go ahead.
really a pretty simple thing. The operational parts are on line 116 and 117 about the requirements. And so some of these have gone on for a good long time. And in fact, there's quite a number that have not even been referred out to the AG timely, perhaps half of them. And so, which is a problem. And so now you're a provider and you're getting withholds, and there's maybe no investigation going or the most de minimis investigation going on for any number of reasons. And so this doesn't dismiss anybody who's guilty, but it says there's two standards that the judge has to look at. There's still, and these are ALJs and they're advisory opinions, but at least it's a way to have the discussion go forward. So the first criteria is there's still a credible allegation. And then the second thing is just tell us that the department is making a reasonable effort to investigate. It doesn't have to say they've adjudicated it, just that they're working on it. And so all that the department has to say is, yeah, we're working on it, and here's what we're working on, and so on. That's all it does. And so it just gives somebody else to nudge them along to continue doing what we expect them to do. So I hope it can be accepted. Thank you.
Senator McQuaid, to that point.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have two questions. First, I don't dispute the problem that Senator Abler is trying to solve. I think it is real. My two questions are on 1.27. Do we have a definition of legal proceedings in this bill or anywhere in statute?
I don't know the answer to that. Senator Abler, do you know the answer to that question? Or is that a statement?
Actually, the intention is legal proceedings to terminate the provider, to criminally charge them. So if it can go on forever, this is adverse to the provider. That's the legal proceedings that we're intending to describe.
Senator McQuaid.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The question, and maybe this is probably for, I don't know who it's for. If the commissioner or the department has recommended a credible allegation of fraud to the OIG, and we have a statewide OIG, so it's not in DHS anymore, but it's the OIG on their own. I guess I'm just making sure that we're lining up all the cans together so that we're creating something that's functional and not feel good. That's my.
You know, it's interesting because that's the emphasis of the argument of the statewide OIG, but under Medicaid, you have to have, it delineated to that agency, right?
Yeah.
And that's actually a gap right there. Does that, Senator Abler, to that point, is there?
I think that it would, whenever, it sounds like we're going to get one, statewide one. So I think that we would want to wordsmith this to interact with that in the correct way. But this is not meant to that, could you please do something or kick them out or
this
just,
is direct.
so we know we're out of business, we know we're going to jail, we know we have a hearing. That's all. I think that this can easily be adapted to that when the time comes.
Senator Fonte, to this point.
No, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it's a good amendment, and we can wordsmith it in a way that's acceptable.
Awesome. The thing to really look at, Senator Wiklund just pointed out the concern of the 270 days thing not to exceed. Is that gonna get, is CMS gonna, basically like that? I guess you don't know until you put it in writing, right? So,
Well, I think this is, if we can move it forward, I'm totally friendly to work on this. We started at 60 days. We had 60, 120, and 240 or whatever, so.
All right.
Or, so one, but yeah, so this is, could you just like, tell us your,
yeah.
tell me your, thank you, I'll stop.
No, I get it. No, I see it. And to Senator Mayquade's point, it's a real issue. And-
Yeah,
And
so-
we're trying to address it. I like that. So I like it. I think go ahead and take it to a vote, I
No,
guess.
just,
Is that what we're
we
doing?
don't have to vote on things, I mean.
So you guys like it?
If the leader there likes it, then we can just move forward as a consensus. I'm not trying to vote on everything.
No, you're fine.
So, Mr. Chair, I just think we need to take a roll call. We have overlapping members, both
Okay.
committees. My concern about this would be the language that says that, that no event shall a payment withhold exceed a total duration of 270 days unless legal proceedings have commenced. And we don't know what is included in that. And so I would not want to have an investigation halted or something to happen to it with this sort of arbitrary date just put in place. So I don't, we have a appeal process in the language in the bill. We could put this in and discuss which is better, but I do have strong concerns about this language.
Well, Madam Chair, if your objection is lines 1.26 to 1.28, we can take that out for now and see if there's a way to have something. But we just want some way to be assured. I'm just watching the world, so I'm willing to delete 126 after days, just take out that last sentence. If that would make you comfortable as a work in progress, I'm totally cool with that.
Senator Wiklund, did you hear Senator Abler's point? And then Senator Rasmussen's got his hand up. You want to finish and then go to Jordan? You want to go to Jordan? Go ahead, Jordan. Senator Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate Senator Abler's work on this amendment. And I think, I just want to make sure that we have feedback from DHS, and I know he's worked with the department on different versions of this, and I just want to make sure it lines up with some of the TA that they've given, because my concern would be, if they didn't have enough time to complete an investigation, and just making sure that they have all the tools that they need to, go after potential fraud. And so I don't know if this is one that we can potentially just continue to work on in the background as conversations on the bill move forward, but that would be where my head is at on this amendment.
Well, Mr. Chair, if we're going to vote on that, I still would then, just in my own, I'll just delete lines, everything on line 126 after days, and on line 127 and 128, just to, 'cause I don't want to get snagged up on that. This would still be a very productive amendment, even if they had to be, like, for the next 4 years, they have to keep saying, yeah, we're still working on it, so.
So Senator Abler, EMQ, has a statement or a question or something regarding that before we go to your oral amendment. Senator Aaron Mayquade.
This is to the oral amendment. I think it makes it less workable instead of more workable. I think like you're saying, like it can't exceed a total number of days unless this thing has happened or these things have started happening. And I think that's, something to identify. I'm just not sure that you've clarified what thing or things have to have started in order for that duration to be exceeded.
So I'm getting rid of the duration.
Which I think makes it makes it less good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm hearing her say, keep it as it is, then go work with the department and with Senator Wiklund on that. That's what I'm hearing from.
Okay,
Is that
well,
right? Yeah. Okay.
So just to whatever way it stays, Senator Wiklund, I will give you you know how I work. We'll find a way to make this work. The department at the end has to agree with it. It's obvious, but they just need a little help to review people. So Senator Wiklund, do you want me to do it or don't do it? Either way, it's a work in progress if it's in or out.
Mr. Chair, Senator Abler, I noticed another question area that I think would prod me to saying we need to work on it in the background. You know, your clause B, where it says that the commissioner may seek an extension of the additional 90 days. But there's not really any provision for what happens if the administrative law judge rules against that, and what would the process be, if anything. And so I think just to make sure that this whole thing is actually workable, I would prefer to work on it in the background.
Senator Abler?
Do you want to vote on it? I don't like working on a voting method, but what do you say, vote on it?
Well, just to clarify, when we were back there, we promised Senator
Well, let's just vote
Rasmussen
on it the way it is.
and Senator Utke, that's what we would do.
I guess
So
we'll
that
take the
was-
temperature.
That was the
that's fine.
global
So
agreement.
I guess I'll leave it the way it is with the covenant. I'm going to work on it if you'll give me the lead to do it.
All right, call the
And I'm going to
roll.
work on it anyway, Mr. Chair,
Yep.
but.
No, it's works.
If we can get it in today.
I'm happy.
So, Mr. Chair, we're voting on it without the oral
You know what's
amendment.
even more happy is I got a note that, you know, when our caucus was going on, we were playing in the background. They were, so we're like, you know, competing with everybody else on that. So
We're that good.
we're that good.
So, Mr. Chair, we're voting on this as is?
Yes. The A7,
Chair Hoffman,
aye.
Vice Chair Fata,
Aye.
Lead Rasmussen,
Rasmussen, no.
Senator Abler,
Yes.
Senator Gruenhagen,
No.
Senator McQuaid,
No.
Senator Mohammed, Senator Utke,
Yes.
Senator Wiklund,
Chair Wiklund,
No.
Vice Chair Mann,
No.
Lead Utke,
Yes.
Senator Abler,
Yes.
Senator Bolden,
No.
Senator Fate,
Yes.
Senator Karan,
Yes.
Senator Kupek,
No.
Senator Liskey, Senator Port.
No.
For the Health and Human Services Committee, there are 4 yes votes and 5 no votes.
For Human Services, it's 4 yea and 4 no, so that's a first in a long time.
There you go.
It's all right. That does not get added, but
But I'm threatening, I'm going to keep working on it. So
no,
let's see.
there's an appeal process piece. You and Senator McQuaid are on to
Yeah,
something there.
I'll work with her.
A8, actually, we
Mr.
need,
Chair,
yes,
you guys just talked about the same thing.
you were doing it. Thank you, Senator Utke. So we're gonna go in recess until the call of, you know,
We can leave our stuff here.
I think so. Yeah.
Thank you.
Can we leave our stuff here? Sergeant, we're good? We are in recess. Thank you, everybody.